It's from the NRO, and I will present that. Right. Hi. My name's Alan Barrett. One of the hats that I wear is Afrinic's representative to the NRO. And the chairmanship of the NRO rotates every year, and I'm the chair this year. So I guess in that capacity, I'll be giving this NRO update. The NRO, the letters stand for Number Resource Organization. It's an organization, an unincorporated organization for collaboration between the 5 RIRs. It was created through an MOU in 2003. That was before Afrinic was created. And then a couple of years later, after Afrinic was created, Afrinic joined into the same MOU. So the mission of the NRO is to coordinate activities by the RIR. So any joint activities, promoting the multi-stakeholder model and bottom-up policy development process. And also, in terms of an MOU between the RIRs and ICANN, the NRO fulfills the role of the ICANN Address Supporting Organization, the ASO. So there's a website, nro.net. The NRO Executive Committee consists of the CEOs of the 5 RIRs. Strictly speaking, the board can appoint anybody, but in practice, the board of each RIR appoints the CEO as their representative to the NRO Executive Committee. And the roles rotate every year. So the treasurer one year becomes the secretary next year, and the secretary one year becomes the chair next year, and so it rotates. So this year, the secretariat is hosted by APNIC. No, I'm sorry. The secretary is the RIPE NCC CEO, but there's also a secretariat which is staffed by one full-time staff member, Hermine, he's sitting over there, I see, and also a part-time consultant. And that secretariat is hosted by APNIC. Then the RIRs also have coordination groups. So there's a communications coordination group where the comms teams from all 5 RIRs talk to each other and coordinate any joint activities. There's an engineering coordination group where the engineering teams from all RIRs talk to each other and coordinate joint activities. And there's a registration services coordination group, and you can probably guess what they do. Also, there are groups to coordinate public affairs, policy development, finance, and legal. And the difference is that the first 3 coordination groups are actually funded through the NRO budget. So we set aside a budget for them to meet, to travel, to have face-to-face meetings from time to time, and to fund some of their other activities. Whereas for the informal groups, they're not funded out of the NRO budget. Anything they would have to do would be funded by the individual RIRs. Every quarter, the NRO publishes a number status report with global statistics. It's on the website, nro.net/statistics. And new this year is a report on the adoption of RPKI. So you'll see there a report on all 5 RIRs and how RPKI is being adopted. There's also a comparative policy review. So we can see the different policies in all 5 RIRs. They all have slightly different approaches to policies, although there are great commonalities. As well, and there are also comparisons of the governance structures. So you can find all that on the NRO website. And I mentioned that the NRO has an agreement with ICANN in terms of which the NRO acts as the ICANN Address Supporting Organization. So viewed from the ICANN side, there's a website, aso.icann.org. The budget for the NRO is about $1.5 million per year, and it's made up of about $570,000 for general operations. So that includes like travel to meetings, updating of the website, consulting services, all the usual sorts of things that you would expect an organization of the NRO size to do. The NRO also contributes $125,000 per year to the IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, and that's divided into two parts. Some of it goes to the UN Trust Fund. So the IGF is an activity of the UN, but it's not funded by the UN, it's funded by donors. And the NRO is one of the donors that puts money into the UN's trust fund to support the IGF. Another part of that IGF contribution goes to the IGF Support Association, the IGF SA. And the IGF SA in turn distributes the funds to support many national and regional IGFs. So within Africa, we have the Africa IGF, and we have several regional IGFs. There's North Africa IGF, Central Africa IGF, and so on. And most of these are supported by the IGF SA. Afrinic will also support you. If you're organizing an IGF in your country or in your region, Afrinic may have some funds to support that. Not a lot, but we set aside some funds every year. Then a big chunk of the NRO's budget is a contribution to ICANN. For many years, the NRO has been contributing $823,000 per year to ICANN. And since the IANA transition, we've formally broken that down into $650,000 for the IANA numbering services. So there's a contract between the RIRs and ICANN, in terms of which ICANN provides the IANA numbering services to allocate big blocks of V4, V6, and ASN to the RIRs. ICANN in turn subcontracts that to an organization called PTI. And I'm sure Selena will be telling us a little more about that later. Also, the RIRs have created a stability fund. So in case one RIR gets into financial difficulties, the other RIRs have pledged to help them. And in that stability fund, there are pledges adding up to $2.1 million. Now that money is not sitting in a central bank account. It's actually part of the general funds of all the RIRs. So for example, in Afrinic's case, there's a pledge to contribute a certain number of dollars in case it's necessary. But as long as it's not necessary, that money is still sitting in Afrinic's bank account. If you look in the Afrinic financial statements, there's a footnote on one of the pages that says how much money is there. There's an IANA review committee to review the performance of the IANA numbering services. And so from each of the 5 regions, there are 3 members, 2 from the community and 1 staff. In the case of Afrinic, the 2 community members are the same as the 2 community representatives on the ASO-AC. There's a website where the committee has its archives. It published it's published its 2018 report. Isn't there 2019 report? Iman, do you know? Oh, sorry. The 2018 report is published in 2019. And the report basically says that we're very happy with the performance of the IANA numbering services. So there's a list of the members of the review committee. The community members are the same as the ASO-AC, and the staff members are usually staff who are involved in registration services. ICANN recently changed its bylaws as part of the transition process, And there's a new structure in ICANN called the Empowered Community, which has the ability to do several things like removing directors, and it has a say in approving the ICANN budget. And so the NRO EC had to adopt some procedures for how we would participate in the ICANN Empowered Community. And those procedures are published on the web page. You can see at the bottom of the slide there. The URL is too long for me to read out. Every 5 years, there's a review of the ASO. And the most recent review was conducted in 2017. The report was published at the end of 2017, and several recommendations came out of it. There was consultation in all 5 of the regions about how the RIR should respond to the recommendations from the ASO review. The NRO EC published a statement on public consultations, and the NRO maintains a web page where we track all the outstanding issues. There's a list of the 18 recommendations, and there's a few words about the status of what's going on there. On the technical side, I said we had an engineering coordination group, and so that's working on emergency backup operations. The idea is for RIRs to provide backups for each other to ensure the continued availability of public facing services. And we're focusing on read-only access to the most critical services. So for example, if one RIR's WHOIS service goes down, then another RIR could provide a backup, which would be read-only. And the current status is the engineering teams are working on how to implement that. We're improving the status, sorry, we're improving the level of detail in the numbering status report. And that's been published since 2018. It's an ongoing project. Something that's not on the slide is ITHI, and I can never remember what that stands for. Internet Technical Health Indicators. Thank you. The idea is to measure several indicators related to the health of the identifier system. And so on the DNS side, ICANN is involved in that. They're running a big project to measure all kinds of things about the DNS. The RIRs are working on a project to measure things related to our numbering system. So there'll be things like the health of the WHOIS system, like how many records have been updated recently. And we don't yet have an implementation, but more than a year ago, a document was published for comments on what we plan to measure. And we're hoping that the first measurements will be available in the third quarter this year. RDAP is a more modern replacement for WHOIS. The idea is that it's a better access method to the same underlying data. And we're working on consistency of RDAP implementations across the 5 RIRs. So we would like to all provide the same APIs at the same level of detail. We've updated the NRO website last year, and we're updating the ASO website this year. Okay, thank you, and we'll take questions at the end.